Subaru Forester Hybrid, Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, or Honda CR-V Hybrid? Which one should you buy? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. At long last, Subaru is adding hybrids to its lineup, and they've now introduced a Forester Hybrid. And to find out just how good it is, I've brought along two of its biggest rivals, the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid and the Honda CR-V Hybrid. So let's get this comparison started by first talking a little bit about this new Subaru hybrid system. Now, what's really interesting with it is that it actually borrows its hybrid technology directly from Toyota, which is the same case with Mazda and the CX-50 hybrid. But unlike that vehicle, which basically plucks its hybrid drivetrain directly from the Toyota RAV4, instead Subaru did something a little bit different. Instead, what we have here is a Subaru engine, a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated boxer 4-cylinder engine that's attached to a heavily modified Toyota hybrid system. Inside the transmission, we have two electric motors, a starter generator motor and a drive motor that's connected to an eCVT planetary gear set transmission. So this is a very good thing, because for a company that's inexperienced with making hybrids like Subaru, you may as well borrow your hybrid technology from a company that's been doing it for a very long time, such as Toyota. So what's it like? Well, let's start with the fuel economy, since that's the biggest reason why anyone buys a hybrid in the first place. The Forester Hybrid is rated for 35 miles per gallon, or 7 liters per 100 kilometers. Compared to both the RAV4 Hybrid and the CR-V Hybrid, which are both rated for around 40 miles per gallon, or 6 liters per 100 kilometers. So not quite as fuel efficient as the Honda or Toyota, which is disappointing. And that largely comes down to the all-wheel drive system that Subaru is using, which I'll get to in just a moment. But first, how do these SUVs compare when it comes to their power and performance? Well, compared to the regular Forester, which produces 180 horsepower from its 2.5 liter engine, the Forester Hybrid produces 194 horsepower, so 14 horsepower more. Certainly not a big difference, but the extra punch that you get because you now have that electric motor does make a difference. And I would say that the power in this SUV is just about adequate for a vehicle like this. And not only that, but it's an incredibly smooth hybrid system. You really don't notice the engine turning on and off as you drive. And it's a very quiet, smooth engine. So as a whole, the refinement of this hybrid system is really exceptional. In fact, the hybrid system in the Forester is so nice and performs so well that I would actually say it's a slight step above the one that you get in the RAV4 Hybrid. The RAV4 uses a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine that comes connected to two electric motors and an eCVT planetary gear transmission. The RAV4's hybrid system makes 219 horsepower, so you do get more power than the Forester, and again, I would say that it's an adequate amount of power. The engine is a little bit more coarse and gravelly feeling, especially when you're pushing it hard, but as a whole, this is still a very smooth hybrid system. It is worth mentioning, however, that the 2026 RAV4 that's coming, which is going to be an all-new design, is going to significantly improve things in that area with a new 5th generation hybrid system that's going to have more power and most likely going to be smoother and even more quiet. And then we have the CR-V Hybrid, which produces 204 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque. So very similar horsepower to the other two, but more torque, which does make a difference. The CR-V Hybrid uses a naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that's connected to two electric motors and no real transmission. And again, a very smooth hybrid system with a seamless engine that's very quiet and refined. Just an excellent driving experience. So as a whole, all three of these SUVs have very impressive hybrid systems and they all perform very well. But ultimately, when it comes to power, smoothness, and fuel economy, it is the CR-V Hybrid that takes the win. Now, aside from their hybrid systems, what are these three SUVs like when it comes to their driving experience? Well, after spending the last couple of weeks driving them back to back, I have to say that all three of them are quite nice and pleasant to drive. If I had to rank them in order though, the RAV4 Hybrid would definitely come in third place for having the noisiest, least comfortable ride of the three. The CR-V and Forester are certainly much closer. Both are very comfortable SUVs to drive. They both have very nice, smooth, soft suspension, very quiet interiors, and just a really nice overall driving experience. The CR-V does seem to be a little bit better tuned when it comes to handling, so if you're a more aggressive driver, that is going to be the more enjoyable one to drive. But as far as comfort is concerned, both are equally nice driving SUVs. One thing that the Forester though really has going for it over the other two is its visibility. This is a really easy SUV to see out of thanks to having nice tall windows all the way around, which gives it this really nice airy greenhouse feel that's quite nice. Another major benefit that you get with the Forester is its off-road ability thanks to its all-wheel drive system. Now, as mentioned earlier, the Forester Hybrid does not have the best fuel economy in this group, and the reason for that is because Subaru decided to stick with its famous symmetrical full-time all-wheel drive. But although it is less efficient, because Subaru did not compromise or sacrifice its amazing all-wheel drive system, if you do any kind of off-roading, off-road trails, or drive through harsh winter conditions, and you just want to have the best all-wheel drive system possible, well, the Forester is definitely the one to have. The CR-V also has a mechanical all-wheel drive system, but it's a part-time system, so not quite as effective as the one that you get in the Forester. And as for the RAV4 Hybrid, well, there's no mechanical connection between the front and back wheels. Instead, what Toyota does is add a third electric motor that powers the back wheels. That does make it a lot more efficient, and it's completely maintenance-free, which is really nice. But if you're looking for the best all-wheel drive system for off-roading, again, not as good as what you get in the Forester. Oddly though, for an SUV like the Forester, which is designed for off-roading, you would think that Subaru would have included a spare tire, but sadly that's not the case. Because of the hybrid battery, which takes up space underneath the cargo floor, the Forester Hybrid does not have a spare tire, which is unfortunate. In fact, the only SUV in this group that does have a spare tire is the RAV4, which is a major advantage. Now, as far as the interior space and cargo space goes, all three of these SUVs are pretty comparable. All three of these are very spacious, family-friendly SUVs. You get plenty of room in the cargo area, back seats that fold flat, giving you even more room for carrying all your stuff, and you have very spacious back seats that can seat a couple of adults very comfortably. But although these three are very close when it comes to their interior space, there are some major differences when it comes to the interior control setup. This is an area where unfortunately the Forester definitely comes in third place. The biggest issue with the Forester is its touchscreen infotainment system, which is just not very good. It's just too laggy, slow, unresponsive. It has dated looking graphics. The backup camera is too small. And although I certainly would not call it a deal breaker, and it is nice that it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it's definitely the weakest touchscreen of the three. Both the RAV4 and CR-V have much better control setups. You get actual physical controls for adjusting your climate settings, which is really nice. And you have much better touchscreen infotainment systems with a better user interface, more responsive controls, and again, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It is worth mentioning, however, that the new 2026 RAV4 is going to be eliminating most of its physical controls and instead going with a large touchscreen infotainment system. So if you do like to have those actual controls, well, it's going to be the CR-V that takes the win. One drawback though with the interior of the CR-V is that it is missing a few very desirable features that you cannot get. For example, the CR-V Hybrid does not offer ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, a 360 surround view backup camera, or a panoramic sunroof, most of which come included on the higher trims for both the Forester and the RAV4. As a whole though, I would say that all three of these do have nicely put together interiors. They have excellent fit and finish, good build quality, and all three of them come standard with a lot of great active safety technology. So with all that said, how do these three SUVs compare when it comes to their pricing? Well, the RAV4 Hybrid ranges in price between $34,000 to $43,000 US, or $39,000 to $50,000 Canadian. Pricing for the CR-V Hybrid ranges between $37,000 to $44,000 US, or $48,000 to $54,000 Canadian. And the Forester Hybrid ranges in price between $38,000 to $45,000 US, and in Canada only comes one way in the top trim for $51,000 Canadian. In the case of all three, adding the hybrid drivetrain over the regular gas engine adds around $1,500 to $3,000, and I would say that's a price premium that's absolutely well worth it. Not only is the hybrid at least 20 to 30% more fuel efficient, so it will pay for itself after a few years, but you get more power, better performance, a smoother, quieter ride, with no drawbacks when it comes to maintenance or even long-term repairs. Hybrid battery replacement is really no concern, especially since you get such a great hybrid warranty on all three. In fact, in some ways, there's less things to go wrong with the hybrid since they eliminate some traditional expensive components like a regular CVT transmission, which is really nice. And even though you may have to spend a little bit more upfront in order to get the hybrid, because they are such desirable vehicles and in such high demand, they have far better resale value. So in the end, you're really not going to be spending anything extra, and it just makes the hybrid an absolute no-brainer. And as far as quality and reliability is concerned, these are the hybrid SUVs that you want. Both Toyota and Honda have been producing hybrids for over 2 decades. They're incredibly well-proven hybrid systems with very simple, non-turbo, naturally aspirated engines, and incredibly well-sorted, well-proven hybrid technology that's known to last a very long time with very few repair concerns. That is an area where I would have to say Toyota definitely comes out ahead of any other brand, even Honda, just because they've been producing hybrids the longest, have the most experience with it, and have the most well-proven, reliable hybrid systems that are known to last, which is a really good thing for the Subaru. So even though it is a relatively new, unproven hybrid system, which sometimes comes with risks, because it is ultimately using Toyota technology for its hybrid system, that should help reduce the risk and improve the quality and reliability. Another thing to consider is availability. Because hybrids are in such high demand, they can sometimes be more challenging to get and sometimes have long waiting periods depending on the model and your location, which is definitely the case when it comes to Toyota hybrids, including the RAV4, which can sometimes have waiting periods several months long depending on where you're located, which makes it more challenging to get a good deal and pay a fair price at the dealership, which could also be a problem with the Forester Hybrid because of its somewhat limited availability. The limited availability is the main reason why the Forester Hybrid is only offered in one trim in Canada for 2025, which is probably its biggest drawback, as opposed to being offered in 4 different trims as it is in the US, which is something that should be addressed in 2026 when Subaru expands the Forester's production outside of Japan and starts producing it in the United States, which should help improve availability and should allow Subaru to offer more trims in Canada, which would be a really good thing. Until that happens, however, the SUV that has the best supply, the best availability, with the best incentives and available deals by far is the CR-V Hybrid, which in many ways might make it the most attractive SUV to buy in the group. So ultimately, what's the verdict with these 3 SUVs and how would I rank them? Well, even though it's still an excellent option, a very well-made, reliable, fuel-efficient, well-priced SUV, the RAV4 Hybrid is the one that would definitely have to come in 3rd place in this group, just because it's the most outdated, has the noisiest, most uncomfortable ride, and is the most difficult one to buy with the poorest availability. Now, thankfully, most of those issues should be addressed when we get the brand new 2026 RAV4 that's coming soon, which should be a dramatic improvement. But until it becomes available, the outgoing RAV4 is the one that comes in 3rd place for now. For me, the real surprise of this comparison is the Forester Hybrid, because Subaru did such a phenomenal job with this new hybrid system. It's an improvement over the regular gas engine in every single way. More fuel efficient, more powerful, smoother and quieter, without sacrificing the things that make a Subaru, that mechanical, symmetrical all-wheel drive system, the great ground clearance, and off-road ability. It's exactly what Subaru owners have been waiting for, and an absolute no-brainer if you're a fan of the Forester. Its only real drawbacks are that it's not as fuel efficient as the other SUVs, it does not have a spare tire, the interior is not quite as good with that really poor infotainment system, and until 2026 it has limited availability and is only offered in one trim in Canada, which unfortunately limits its appeal. So for all those reasons, the number one hybrid SUV to go for right now has to be the Honda CR-V. It has all the best qualities of the other two SUVs with really none of the drawbacks. It has the best availability, and it's just the most well-rounded SUV to buy, making it my number one choice, at least for now. New hybrid SUVs are coming, including the redesigned 2026 RAV4 and even the new Mazda CX-5 hybrid, so that should make things pretty interesting. So which hybrid SUV would be your choice? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are planning to purchase a vehicle and you live in Ontario, know that OMVIC is the provincial sales regulator that's responsible for administering and enforcing the rules that dealerships must follow. To learn more about your consumer protection rights, visit omvic.ca, and if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.